Hello there YouTube, BoomerHK here, and welcome to another Grame video. Well, I haven't made a Grame video in a while, since embarrassingly the whole project accidentally got deleted from my computer. And so I've had to rebuild it, rewrite it, and I finished, well, technically about 2 days ago, but I've been spending the last 2 days sort of polishing it and making sure things work. It's not perfect, but it's at least up to the level that it was when the code was lost, and even more than that. I think I took it beyond what it was and added stuff that I've been meaning to add to it for a while. Just that I was limited by old code that I put there when I started the project, and it's just a pain in the ass. So I rewrote the whole thing from scratch, and I gotta say it's working much better than I anticipated. Um, so if you don't know what Grame is, it is basically an engine, a game engine, which is supposed to run in sort of a 2D grid environment. Um, that environment is called a base, and previously you loaded entities into it, which you could manipulate to do different things, like move around or all kinds of stuff. But since the newest version, which I made, entities no longer play such a major role, and they've been replaced by Grame objects, which make everything more generic. Notice that I've rearranged the packages so they're much more meaningfully named and sort of contain what you'd expect them to. So, uh, yeah, like I said, you got a base. You got a base, and you got Grame objects, which you add to it. That's basically it. So you can create your own Grame objects. Uh, well, and I'm repeating myself, but that's basically all there is to it. To create, I'm just going to create one to sort of demonstrate the capabilities, or sort of explain what it does. So I'm just going to do something like test Grame objects. I'm just going to create a new class, and I'm going to make it extend the Grame object class, which is well, it's not really an interface, but kind of. So it's an abstract class, so it has methods which you need to implement, and it must have a constructor. So let me just get rid of these to-dos. Okay, so here's the constructor. It receives a name, speed, color, and paused boolean. Now, what the speed basically, the way it works is there's a central clock which sort of runs in its own thread, which is in the Grame Manager class. And every time you create a Grame object, you call this constructor, you call the super, and what it'll actually do, it has this final int ID, which is unique, and when you initialize, when you construct your object, it will add it to the Grame objects list. This method will return an int, and that is the unique ID. And so the first Grame object that you create will get the ID of 0, next one will be 1, and so on. So that's how that works. And if you want to fetch Grame objects, you do Grame Manager dot find Grame object, and then you send the ID of whichever Grame object you want to get back. Super simple. So the constructor we don't really need to touch. Collidable or not. Scenarios, coins, for example, will be not collidable, since you want other objects to be able to sort of occupy the same square that they occupy. Of course, you'd make them disappear once they occupy, but the tick. So walls will be true. So let's just make a wall that doesn't really do anything. It just kind of sits there. So we're gonna make it collidable. I know I probably should have made a Boolean field, but I don't know, it started out as an interface and then I turned it into an abstract class. So making fields in an interface is kind of complicated. So I just made everything into methods and this kind of stayed. But whatever, I might do that later on. Doesn't really matter. The tick method now. The tick method is basically, it gets activated, it gets called every time the speed sort of, you know, completes. So let's say you set the speed of 5. So every 5 clock ticks, this object's tick method will be called. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense, but whenever, you know, if you want it to never tick, you can set the speed to 0, or you can set the pause to true, and then the Grame manager will just ignore it and it will never tick it. So just as an example, what we're going to do here is, let's just say this dot color equals Grame utils dot random color, just like that. So every time it gets ticked, the color will change to a random color. So this BID, it's like I said, Grame objects have their own unique IDs, and so do bases now. Bases also have that same, you know, ID system. So you know, if you wanted to take in an ID that in a base that it exists in, so if you add it to a certain base, it'll take in those bases. Whatever, you don't really need to care about this. It's just a base that it's in currently. So we could do something like say so BID, and when this gets ticked, it will print the ID of the base that it's currently in. If you want to, you know, print stuff like about the base, then you do something like Grame manager dot find base BID and then dot toString. I don't know, whatever. This will return a base object. So that's you know, whatever. Okay, so now we have a test Grame object. We're gonna need what I like to call a Grame script, which is basically a main class. I call it script because you're not you know, I never find myself doing calculations in my main class. It's all just sort of connecting dots, you know, declaring new entities, putting them in bases, setting their AIs and all that. But all the AI calculations are done in the AI classes, you know, stuff like that. So I just like calling them scripts. So first of all, we're going to need to declare a new base, x and y. Let's just do 20 on 20. I've got to import that. You'll notice that a lot of the parameters went away. Now you just declare, you know, the width, the columns, and the rows. Now, before first of all, you'd have to declare a new Grame manager. You had to do that. Gone are the days. You don't have to do that anymore. I figured out a pretty cool system where everything just works in the background. You just write your script and everything just happens. So we want to make this base visible. So we got to call the render manager. We got to tell him to render this base. We need to give it the ID. So it's going to be b.id. It's public final, so you can just reference it like that, you know, for the sake of ease. So now it's rendering that base. Now we're going to do render manager dot set visible true. Now I might change this around a bit because it's a bit. You can set it. You can set the render manager to visible. I mean, not the render manager. The main JFrame. You can set it to visible before you render anything. It's just going to be like a tiny window. So I mean, these need a bit more work, but they do their job currently. So there's nothing, you know. So if I run this, we will see first of all that we have the Mu console, which is a console that I created myself, and it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna. I went into it in one of my other videos, so I'm just gonna put that on the side. And here we have our base, rendering base number 0. You'll see added a base to the base list with gave it an ID of 0. So this is base ID 0. and you'll notice it's 20 on 20, and it's completely empty, completely white. So now we're gonna use that Grame object that we created. Test Grame object. Test equals new test Grame object. Now its name is going to be test. Its speed is going to be 1, so it's going to tick pretty rapidly. And the color is going to be GrameUtils.random color, whatever. By the way, 1 is the minimum speed. 0 will it'll skip it. If the speed is 0, it's considered to be paused. And we're going to make this false, so it actually ticks. So now we have our test object, and we will put him in the base. So we're going to do this, b.add Grame object. Now the base actually contains layers. By default, there's only one layer, which you can add Grame objects to, but you can add more layers. Add geolayer. That's an abbreviation. I don't like abbreviations. I don't know why I did that. So Grame object layer is another thing. It's basically just a two-dimensional array. Not really. It's one-dimensional, but it acts as a two-dimensional array. And the place, since it goes by layer, so if you want it to be at the bottom, it's going to be at place 0. If you want it to be at the top, it's going to be at however many layers there are, -1. So we don't want to add any layers. We just want to add a Grame object. So we're going to add test and GrameUtils.random coordinates within the base B. Okay, so now if we run this, let's have a look. Boom, there we go. There's our Grame object, which is changing colors every tick because that's what we told it to do in its tick method. We could obviously make it do other things. We can we can make it slower, so the tick rate is not as rapid. You see, it's much slower. It's much slower now. So that kind of gives you an idea of how to work with that. 1 being the fastest, and the maximum being infinity, or the maximum capacity of ints in Java. I forget what it is. It's like 2 billion or something. I don't know. So yeah, entities, like I said in the beginning, entities are they're not obsolete, but they don't. They're not in the essential package. There's this essentials. Bases are essential. You can't use Grame without bases. But entities aren't really essential. They're kind of basic since they are Grame objects. Grame objects are essential, and entities kind of are a way to get you started. So if we want to just make a player entity, we can do something like entity ent equals new entity. Notice that we don't need to send it a base like we used to have to. We could just declare a new entity. Now we want to do ent.makePlayer. So the first parameter is going to be player 1 or player 0. Player 1 being WASD and player 2 being the arrow keys. I'm just going to do it player 1. Whether we want to set it as a player, we do want to set it as a player. And then this is going to be b.id, capital letters. So now we have a player. We want to add him to the base. We're going to add him at GrameUtils.random coordinates base B. All right. So we can move him around. Notice he's pretty slow because his speed is pretty not very fast. But if you'll notice, we have our trippy Grame object. We can't actually pass through it. It's impossible, and that is because it is collidable. Now, if it wasn't collidable, let's say we returned false here. Then this would happen. It would get consumed and technically get removed from the base. Now this is good if you have things like coins, but if you don't actually want it to get erased, um, you'd use a layer. You'd put it on a different layer, and then it it wouldn't get consumed. It kind of defeats the purpose. If you don't want it to get consumed, then just make it solid or put it on. If it's on a different layer, it doesn't matter since any other objects on different layers won't be able to interact with it. They'll either move underneath it or above it. But that's basically the idea. It's good. For example, I was kind of thinking of useful, ways, basically reasons to have this layer system. And I was thinking kind of if you want to have something like sort of, let's say, snow. I don't know why you'd want to have this, but this is just an idea. The idea of Grame is to provide anybody with a super easy to use and generic engine, which you can pretty much do anything with. So I always think of like the most ridiculous cases because somebody's going to want to do it. I'm guessing. Um, so let's say you'd want to have something like a sort of a rain effect or like a snowing effect. So you'd create Grame objects, maybe call them particles, I don't know, and just make them move like this on a different layer, on a top layer. So any objects underneath will pass underneath it. It just adds to the atmosphere. I mean, you're kind of limited with the atmosphere that you have with this sort of grid environment, but I mean, you can get creative with it. The floor color for the base is also configurable. You can configure it per square. You could do something like this: b dot set floor color. This method will change all the squares. Color dot just say blue. I don't know why. And now we have a blue base. Of course, you can change it per square if you provide it with a set of coordinates. So all these methods already exist. Whoops, we have an issue. Yeah, the coordinates come first. Right, so all these methods are already written. All you have to do is just, call them in a certain order and you have a game. So this is the floor color. It's not a layer, it's not in our layer. It is actually the color of the floor. You can't interact with it. There's no object there. But yeah, it was just easier than making an object layer with a bunch of Grame objects, which would do, have their own color. So whatever. I'm getting into the technicalities of how this works, but I mean, it's not so complicated. The code is on GitHub. I'll probably link the repo in the description. And yeah, I hope that some of you will, whoever's watching this, I don't know how many people actually watch my videos, but I hope you find this interesting and are motivated to do something cool with this. This is in constant development. I say constant, I mean I kind of work on it whenever I can. And I have some plans for it, maybe adding sort of like an event system, since there is an AI system for entities. It only works with entities. It doesn't work with Grame objects as a whole. I might change that, but currently it does it. And so I might implement some sort of event system, to help detect when entities, reach their target or hit a wall, maybe, stuff like that. That could be kind of cool. I don't know how practical it is. Well, before I end this video, I think I'm just going to demonstrate how the AI system works. I'm going to make it pretty brief since I don't like editing long videos. So I'm just going to create a new entity. I'm going to do ent2.setTarget. And notice it's asking for an integer that's just going to be the ID of the entity that we want to set as target. So it's going to be ent.id. Now, I want to add. I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to add capability to keep track of multiple targets. Currently, you can only keep track of one target, but I want to add it. So I want to add a way to keep track. It's not so hard, but I've been working on other less essential things. So for example, this method will change to add target, not set target, little things like that, which is why I said that this is constantly in development. So we're just going to add him to the base. Okay, that should, oh no, we didn't actually tell him to do anything. So now we're going to do n2 dot add AI. So there is a movement AI interface. So anybody can come and write their own AI. So I'm just going to use an AI that comes with Grame, which is the simple chased AI. And I wanted to use this AI within base B. Because the reasoning behind having to provide it here, every time AIs are necessary to provide it with a base is because I want entities and Grame objects to be able, to be usable on different bases and act differently on different bases. I don't know, in case somebody, would like that. So that it works fine. So now what's going to happen is it actually has the way the AI works. There's an array list in the entity class, which is full of movement AIs, and whenever whenever the entity gets ticked, it will determine which AI is valid. There's a validity checker in every AI class, and if it's not valid, it'll move on to the next movement AI in the list until it finds the first one which is valid, and then it'll use that AI. So currently there's only one AI in the list, and I think the is valid is whether whether the target is in range. So if the target is in range of the chaser, this is valid. If not, it's not valid, and it won't use this. So the default range I think is 5. So if we just run this, we'll see that here's our player and here's our chaser. So if we step into his range, you'll see that he starts chasing me, and he's actually faster than me, so he's just gonna stick to me like this. It's kind of annoying. We gotta do something about that. I'll just make him 7. I think the default speed is 5 as well, so okay, yeah, so now I'm faster than him and I can actually escape his range. Not really. Okay, so now I'm out of his range. Notice how he's sitting still because I'm not in his range, and his chase AI is invalid. So instead of having it sit still, let's say, I want to make him stroll around when he can't catch me. So I'm going to do add AI, new simple stroll AI within base B. So now it'll check the first AI, which is simple chase. When I'm outside of its range, it's going to notice that this is not valid, and it's going to move on to the next one, which is a stroller. And yeah, that's basically it. Okay, so now I'm outside of its range, and it's not strolling, which is weird. I guess the stroller must be broken. Oh no, I think I'm not sure. Maybe that doesn't work. Could be that that doesn't work. Oh no, it is working. He is strolling. Okay, it's just super random, so you don't actually know when it's it doesn't actually necessarily have to be at speed 7. But it does work. So right now he's in stroll mode, and if I get back into his range, he's going to chase me again. Just like that. Now, there is a difference, an order priority, if you put this in front of here. If you do this, for example, he's always going to stroll, since the strolling validity checker will return true if the entity is not surrounded, which is like practically always. And when he is surrounded, he can't chase you. So you gotta be mindful of these things, and order does matter. So, if you want to make him chase and then stroll when he's out of range, you do this. Of course, um, you could have a different AI, call it something like suspicion AI, and which basically means that he goes around in circles around walls or something. I don't know. Maybe have a map out the base with travel costs and see kind of where he should go. You could do a lot with the AI system, but you'd have it with the chase first, and if the chase can't happen, then you do the next AI, and then maybe even the next and next. Potentially, you could add as many as you want. Okay, so I said it was going to be brief, but it wasn't really brief. Sorry about that. Uh, yeah, that's that. I guess this is what the new Grame looks like. Yeah, like I said, when I thought I was going to end the video, with sometime around 10 minutes ago, maybe it was. I hope I hope you find this project interesting, and you are compelled to use it in a project. I'd love to hear if you do end up using this for something. Let me know if things are missing. Feedback is great. All right, I think I'll shut up now. Thanks for watching.